Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayanti Nashtaprayeshu Vadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. So continuing with the discussion on Krishna book, chapter 87, prayers by the personified Vedas. So continuing with Prabhupada's purport, factually when the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes, he exhibits a non-material body, and thus there is no difference between his childish body when he is lying on the lap of his mother Yashoda and his so-called grown-up body fighting with the demons. So he is always the same. In his childhood body, he also fought with demons such as Putna, Trinavarta, and Aghasur with strength equal to that with which he fought in his youth against demons like Dantavakra and Shishupal. In material life, as soon as a conditioned soul changes his body, he forgets everything of his past body. But from the Bhagavad Gita, we understand that because Krishna has a Satchidananda body, he did not forget instructing the sun god about the Bhagavad Gita millions of years ago. The Lord is therefore known as Purushottam because he is transcendental to both material and spiritual existence. That he is a cause of all causes means that he is a cause of the spiritual world and of the material world as well. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is omnipotent and omniscient. Therefore, because a material body can be neither omnipotent nor omniscient, the Lord's body is surely not material. The Mayavad theory that the personality of Godhead comes within this material world, with the material body, cannot be supported by any means. So, as we discussed yesterday also, so Mayavad philosophy is, he is also material, his body is material, but it's not at all material. And as yesterday Prabhupada was saying, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so anybody who thinks his Krishna's body is material, he is a great offender. So here Prabhupada is showing he is not at all, his body is not at all material. And so are his intimate associates. Their body is not material either. All spiritual. So even when he was a little baby, he exhibited transcendental pastimes, strength and knowledge. As soon as he was born, so-called born, actually he appears, he doesn't take birth. As soon as he was born, he had full-grown hair, 4 hands, with all the 4 weapons. His body was covered with jewels, and he gave instructions to Vasudevji in the prison house. So there's nothing material about him. And we, on the other hand, we are not transcendental. We all have material bodies. It can be concluded that all the theories of the materialistic philosophers are generated from temporary illusory existence, like the conclusions in a dream. Such conclusions certainly cannot lead us to the absolute truth. The absolute truth can be realized only through devotional service. As the Lord says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya Mam Abhijanati. Only by devotional service can one understand me. Srila Sridhar Swami has composed nice words in this regard, which states, my dear Lord, let others engage in false arguments and dry speculation, theorizing upon great philosophical theses. Let them loiter in the darkness of ignorance and illusion, falsely enjoying as if very learned scholars, although they are without knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As far as I am concerned, I wish to be liberated simply by chanting the holy names of the all-beautiful Supreme Personality of Godhead, Madhav, Vaman, Trinayan, Sankarshan, Shripati, and Govinda. Simply by chanting your transcendental names, O Lord Madhupati, let me become free from the contamination of this material existence. So that is the only way to get out. And moreover, when all acharyas, even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself said, chanting of the holy names of the Lord is the only way to get out of this material existence, material contamination. So he whose names are so pure, of course, name is not different from Krishna. So that is also a proof that he is transcendental. His name is so transcendental, so purifying. If somebody chants my name, he will get contaminated, not purified. But by chanting Krishna's name, people get purified. Devotees get purified. So definitely, his body is not material, his names are not material, his personality, his pastimes, nothing is material about Krishna. But Mayavadi philosophers, they all make this huge mistake, and that's when they don't take up to devotional service, and they waste their precious human life. In this way, the personified Vedas said, Dear Lord, when a living entity, by your grace only, comes to the right conclusion about your exalted transcendental position, he no longer bothers with the different theories manufactured by the mental speculators or so-called philosophers. This is a reference to the speculative theories of Gautam, Kanad, Patanjali, and Kapila. Kapila, Nir-Ishvara or Nirakar philosophy. Or I'm sorry, Kapila gave the Sankhya philosophy, but without Ishvara. There are actually two Kapilas. One Kapila, the son of Kardamuni, is an incarnation of God, and the other is an atheist of the modern age. The atheistic Kapila is often misrepresented to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Kapila, the incarnation of Godhead, appeared as a son of Kardamuni long ago during the time of Swayambhuva Manu, because Swayambhuva Manu came with his daughter Devahuti to marry her off to Kardamuni. The modern age is the age of Vivasvat Manu, and that is when atheistic couples appeared. So according to Mayavad philosophy, this manifested world or material world is mithya or maya. Maya means false. The Mayavadi preaching principle is Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Only the Brahman effulgence is true and the cosmic manifestation is illusory or false. But according to Vaishnava philosophy, this cosmic manifestation is true because it is caused by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that he enters within this material world by one of his plenary portions, and thus the creation takes place. From the Vedas also we can understand that this asat or temporary cosmic manifestation is an emanation from the Supreme Sat or fact. From the Vedanta Sutra also it is understood that everything has emanated from the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the Vaishnavas do not take this cosmic manifestation to be false, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead has entered this cosmic manifestation in the form of his plenary expansion, which is Paramatma, and caused the creation. The Vaishnava philosophers see everything in the material world in relationship with the Supreme Lord. So then what is illusory? What is illusion? If this material world is true, it is temporary, true, but nevertheless, it is true. It's not false. So what is the illusory aspect of it is how we use this. Whether we use this material world for our enjoyment, to exhibit our control, then it becomes false because our concept is wrong. Energy is not false. This conception of the material world is very nicely explained by Srila Rupa Goswami, who says that when persons renounce the material world as illusory or false without knowing that the material world is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord, their renunciation is of no value. So that renunciation is called false renunciation, because if something is true and we say, no, I renounce it because it is false, what's the value of this renunciation? The Vaishnavas, however, are free of attachment to this world because although the material world is generally accepted as an object of sense gratification, the Vaishnavas are not in favor of sense gratification and are therefore not attached to material activities. The Vaishnava accepts this material world according to the regulative principles of the Vedic injunctions and works without attachment. Since the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the original cause of everything, the Vaishnava sees everything in relationship with Krishna, even in this material world. And Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, I am the taste of water, I am the light of sun and moon. So, means everything can be seen in relationship with Krishna, because everything comes from Krishna. By such advanced knowledge, everything becomes spiritualized. In other words, everything in the material world is already spiritual, but due to our lack of knowledge, we see things as material. So everything is spiritual, and when we use everything in the service of God, our consciousness also gets spiritualized. The personified Vedas presented the example that those seeking gold do not reject gold earrings, gold bangles, or anything else made of gold, simply because they are shaped differently from the original gold. All living entities are part and parcel of the Supreme Lord and are qualitatively one with Him, but they are now differently shaped in 8.4 million species of life, just like many different ornaments manufactured from the same source of gold. So qualitatively, we are one with the Lord. So the spirit soul is same as Satchidanand Vigraha. But the bodies that we have are different based on our contamination by the material modes of nature. But nevertheless, it all comes from gold. It all comes from the spiritual energy. As one who is interested in gold accepts all the differently shaped gold ornaments. So a Vaishnava, knowing well that all living entities are of the same quality as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, accepts all living entities as eternal servants of God. A Vaishnava then has ample opportunity to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead simply by reclaiming these conditioned, misled living entities, training them in Krishna consciousness and leading them back home, back to God. The fact is that the minds of the living entities are now agitated by the three material qualities. And the living entities are therefore transmigrating as if in dreams from one body to another. When their consciousness is changed into Krishna consciousness, however, they immediately fix Krishna within their hearts, and thus their path toward liberation becomes clear. So that's all we have to do. First we have to change our consciousness to Krishna consciousness and help others. Changing their consciousness by preaching, by engaging them in service of Krishna, whichever way. And this thus their path towards liberation becomes clear. And in the process, when we help others, Krishna becomes pleased with us also. And then he gives us more mercy, by which we can also make more progress. In all the Vedas, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the living entities are stated to be of the same quality, Chetan or spiritual. This is confirmed in Padma Purana, wherein it is said that there are two kinds of spiritual entities. One is called the Jiva, and the other is called the Supreme Lord. From Lord Brahma down to the ant, all living entities are Jivas, whereas the Lord is a supreme four-handed, Vishnu or Janardhan. Strictly speaking, the word Atma can be applied only to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because the living entities are His parts and parcels, sometimes the word Atma is applied to them also. The living entities are therefore called Jivatma, and the Supreme Lord is called Paramatma. Both the Paramatma and the Jivatma are within this material world, and therefore this material world has a purpose other than sense gratification. The conception of life of sense gratification is illusion. But the conception of service by the Jivatma to the Paramatma, even in this material world, is not at all illusory. So the conception of a life of sense gratification is illusion. Why is it illusion? Because really we cannot enjoy anything separately from Krishna. That is for sure. We think we are enjoying, but we are not enjoying. Our enjoyment is what? Giving pleasure to our either working senses or knowledge acquiring senses. That's all. And finally, giving some satisfaction to the mind. But that pleasure, first of all, it's temporary. It is of very little value or low quality pleasure. And ultimately, it gives unhappiness. Unhappiness in the sense, suppose I get attached to something or somebody that gives me pleasure. Sooner or later, I will not find pleasure in that person or thing. But in the meantime, I got attached to it. And when I don't find pleasure or I get away from that person or thing, I'll be unhappy. I'll be miserable. In the spiritual world, there's no such concept. But here, it is. So that's why all this sense gratification, it gives whatever pleasure it gives, it's illusory. It's not what we are looking for. And definitely this is not what soul is looking for. But the design, this is the beauty of design of material world by Krishna. It feels so real. And that's why the whole world is crazy about different kinds of bodily pleasures and running after it, ready to spend money and energy and effort and time on it. For what? Some illusory happiness. A Krishna conscious person is fully aware of this fact, and thus he does not take this material world to be false, but acts in the reality of transcendental service. The devotee therefore sees everything in this material world as an opportunity to serve the Lord. He does not reject anything as material, but dovetails everything in the service of the Lord. Thus a devotee is always in the transcendental position, and everything he uses becomes spiritually purified by being used in the Lord's service. But Maya, Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita, Devi Hiesha Gunamai Mam Maya Durakyaya. It's very, very difficult, almost impossible to overcome this forces of Maya. Even when somebody is trying to surrender, and in fact, that time Maya acts more strongly. Why? If somebody is not trying to surrender, then he is not going for the purification. He is not trying to be eligible to go back home, back to Godhead. He is not trying to go through any exams. So Maya leaves him alone. You are in my grips anyway. But if a devotee, if somebody is trying to be devotee, trying to surrender, then Maya has to test. That's all. And really the test begins. The test will come. So to see how prepared this soul is, how eligible, how qualified this soul is to surrender to Krishna, to go back home, back to Godhead. Is he purified enough? Maya is definitely on a test. But the beauty of devotional service is, one, Krishna helps that devotee. Two, other devotees help that devotee get over this onslaughts of Maya, or how to prepare himself by how to defend himself from this onslaughts of Maya, how to protect himself. And even if he fails, whatever progress he has made is eternal. It remains with him. So whether he starts again in this lifetime or takes it up again next lifetime, he'll start from wherever he left off, just like in the case of Ajamil. So Maya, definitely, Maya is very, very strong, but Maya is not, as Prabhupada said, Maya is not stronger than Krishna's name. So all we have to do is continuously chant, "Oh Krishna, oh Radharani, please engage me in your service. Please don't let me fall down in the service of Maya. I've served Maya long enough. Millions and millions of lifetimes I have served Maya. It doesn't give me any pleasure. Because if there was any pleasure in serving Maya, then we won't be hankering for any more pleasure. Well, obviously, some desires are unfulfilled. And because of those unfulfilled desires, we take new form, new body, new birth, and again we try to fulfill our desires, and again some desires are unfulfilled, so again some desires are not at all fulfilled. Some could be partially fulfilled. And again we take birth in different species of life. So this vicious cycle of birth and death goes on and on and on. And now we are trying to put a stop to it. So we have to really beg when we are chanting, "Oh Krishna, Srimati Radharani, please, 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 please engage me in your service. I've served Maya long enough. I just want to serve you." Sridhar Swami has composed a nice verse in this regard. "I worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always manifested as reality, even within this material world, which is considered by some to be false. The conception of the falsity of this material world is due to a lack of knowledge. But a person advanced in Krishna consciousness sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything. He sees Supreme Personality of Godhead in everything, everywhere, in every activity also. This is actual realization of the Vedic aphorism, Sarvam Khalo idam Brahma. Everything is Brahman. So everything is Brahman, but again, we have to understand how everything can be used in service of Krishna. Just like a nice example is given once on Brahmachari, he learned in his Gurukul and nicely, he learned it very recently. Oh, everything is Brahman, everything is Brahman, and we have to see Krishna everywhere. So he came out of his class and he was going home and he was saying, oh yeah, everything is Brahman. See, little knowledge without knowing how to apply it becomes dangerous. And then he saw an elephant, mad elephant, running towards him. And he stood in the middle of the road thinking, oh, this mad elephant is also Brahman. Krishna is there. Why I have to be afraid? And elephant came and he picked this Brahmachari up in his trunk and threw him far away. And this Brahmachari fell down. His bones were broken and he was crying. And he came, and the other students picked him up, brought him to Gurukul, and he said, Guruji, you taught everything is Brahman, and how come and that elephant was not acting like a Brahman? Guruji said there was a Mahavat on top of that Brahman, and that Brahman Mahavat was telling you to get out of the way. Why didn't you get out of the way? So we have to learn also to make different, to differentiate. That's all. So that's where intelligence comes in. Yes, everything is Brahman. Everything comes from him. But that doesn't mean we're going to go and embrace a tiger or a snake. It doesn't work like that. So we have to differentiate according to the consciousness. But yes, everything is Brahman. Everything comes from him. Everything is maintained by Krishna. But at the same time, we have to know how to use everything in service of Krishna. Then it's a wonderful world. It's a spiritual world. And this is what everybody does in the spiritual world. They see Krishna everywhere. They see Krishna in everything. They see everything is used in service of Krishna. Lovingly. That is spiritual. So the same material world can become spiritual world also. Because ultimately everything is energy of Krishna. Okay, I guess we can stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments? Okay, so we'll stop here. You all have a safe and wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri.